So, I don't know if people know this, but you've always been unbelievably great to me. Despite when I was 5 foot nothing and 100 and some pounds, I was cut from your program as a sophomore. And people probably don't know that story, but if I was you in that at that time, I would have done the same thing. I was 95 pounds when I was a freshman. There were kids certainly better than me at the time. And then miraculously, I just grew afterwards. And obviously, you know the story with myself and my brothers. And I appreciate everything that you've done for me. Despite being that kid when I was a sophomore, getting cut from a basketball program that I dreamed of being part of. So
Well, I
thank
appreciate your kind words, and I learned from that fatal mistake because your two brothers grew the same way, and we didn't cut them.
yeah,
And they were big contributors to our program, and you would have been too if
yeah,
not only unknown.
yeah.
Your great father, Dick. He should have told me this was going to happen. He never told me.
Did you not read those letters?
I get you letters.
If people don't know, he knew quite a lot about basketball, and I'll tell you what, he is the absolute reason why I say that my dad loved his kids too, and he'd do or say anything to help protect them. So that's Dick Warner.
Wonderful man. God bless him.
I appreciate it. So obviously hopping on, I'd love to share your story, and sometimes you go through the years and you haven't been, you've certainly been around Boylan and certainly continually contribute to Boylan basketball, but sometimes a name may get lost through the years, and I kind of wanted to put a face to the name that's certainly around Boylan, and in my opinion certainly helped build Boylan to what they are, not only as a basketball program but as a school. But take me and take everybody back in regards to what started you in basketball. I know you're at Harvard before you ended up being at Boylan, but what took you back in the early days?
Well, just depends how far back you want to go, Jason.
I got time.
I grew up in the inner city of Chicago, and I learned how to play basketball in the alley.
Yeah,
Had baskets on garage doors.
sure.
There was a young man that was probably, I think 2 years older than me, maybe 3 years older than me. His name was Willie Kempfer. And we went to Gage Park High School. I was the oldest as 6. And at the time, my dad was starting a business and couldn't afford to go to the Catholic schools my brothers and sisters went to, even though it was only like $400 a year to go to school. That was a lot of money back
Oh, sure.
in the late 50s. But anyways, Willie was one of these guys. He was a 3-sport star.
Yep.
He was a captain of, I think, of all 3 teams: football, basketball, and baseball. And he was a guard. He was about my height. And we went to the alley. He used to beat me up as far as playing basketball, not beat me up physically, but beat me up as far as teaching me to go left, go right, et cetera, et cetera. And I got a love for the game, and I played, and I wasn't very good. But I learned that hard work can make you better.
Yeah.
And I ended up starting my senior year being a captain, and then but I learned that my high school coach, God rest his soul, I'm not going to say his name, he was a guy who just punched the clock. Practice started at 3 o'clock, was going to be over at 4:15. Nothing before, nothing after. No weights, no conditioning, no anything before season, after season. He was just a union man in the Chicago public schools, and that was it.
Sure.
And I said to myself when I got out of the program, there has to be a better way to do this coaching situation better. What we had, one of my teammates actually was good enough to go to Notre Dame. When he was a couple years older than me, actually went to Illinois. So we did have some talent, but we never did anything very much. We got made the second round of playoffs in the city and get hammered or something by DuSable or something like that. But we never had really an organization. Never had the discipline. We never could see what was going to. There was no anticipation brought into our game. You know,
Yep.
we didn't go over things. So I went to school in city school, and I was struggling with my academics, and I was just sort of wasting my time. And a couple of my buddies and I pushed our draft up. We went into the service. I ended up playing on a Fort Hood service team a little bit, and I ended up like coaching them. And I got out of there, and I went to Western Illinois, and I got hired as a vet. Okay.
Sure.
Because I was a vet. I was 2 years in the Army, so I got hired as a vet by a guy who runs a veterans club. Was the president of the Veterans Club, but he also ran the YMCA in Macomb, Illinois. So I got hired as a vet, and I got to go teach at these kids in these programs. Okay, these various programs in Macomb.
Sure.
Okay, so I worked for YMCA. And then I got into PE, and I got my undergraduate degree. And then and the thing that was a big key to me was also I got offered a chance for my master's degree if I stayed on, and I was going to be a teaching assistant. So then I went into the grade schools, and I was teaching in the grade schools in Macomb.
Sure.
You know, first I was coaching little programs for the Y in Macomb. Then I was teaching school in Macomb, and I was around, and where I first ran my first place I lived in Macomb was owned by the basketball coach at Western, Guy Rickey. So I was around the basketball program, et cetera, and I grew to just learn how to help other people. Sure. And I really relished it because my own personal history of not really being that good and having to work very hard for what I achieved, I sort of brought this to the students and the children that I work with. Sure. And what happened was when I got a chance when I got my teaching degree, and I was still working on my master's, I was able to get the head coaching job at Bardolph High School.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, which was Bardolph High School was a school that had 59 kids in the whole school. Okay, and make a long story short, just went out and worked. The kids worked hard. Our clock, by the way, didn't have numbers on it. It had a revolving deal where the number was 8 minutes. It'd just go round, and when it got to the last minute of quarter, it turned to red. You go round and round, yeah. And but anyways, we won 7 games, and it was the most games they'd won in about 7 or 8 years. And but this was the big key. And I'm talking too much, but this is one of the big keys in my career. At the end of the season, Percy Yard, our superintendent, calls me into his office. He says, Steve, we have a banquet every year, and all the families, they just bring the food and they pass it, and it's great. It's real super. And we usually have a guest speaker come in. And, I was thinking maybe getting Red Rogers, who was the coach over in Hamilton, Illinois. And I said, Mr. Yard, I says, we're in Bardolph, Illinois, right outside of Macomb, a suburb of Macomb. Yeah. And we're like halfway between Galesburg and Quincy. Well, back at that time, two of the most legendary coaches in the state, maybe outside of Virgil Fletcher and Dottie Hawkins. Virgil Fletcher down in Collinsville, and Dottie Hawkins in Pekin. John Thiel in Galesburg, right? Silver Streaks were terrific. And Cheryl Hanks down in Quincy. He says, and I said, why don't we get one of these guys? It's just an hour drive, they'll be here. He said, oh, they'll never come. Well, let me try. So I called Cheryl Hanks, and he said yes. And he came over. He had the dinner. We had the dinner, et cetera, et cetera. Got to talk to him, and started a relationship that changed my life.
Sure.
At the end of that year, I realized how much I didn't know coaching basketball, even though like I said, we worked hard. So I thought I'd try to look for some place to get assistant coaching job that would help me. I made a major school. I want to go up the ladder of the coaching career, So the only job I could get at that time was assistant, teach grade school PE, which I did at Macomb, beforehand, and go ahead and be an assistant basketball coach at the sophomore level up in Crete Monee.
Sure.
Dome there, etc. And I went up there and I coached football, assistant basketball, and I was there for a year. And that was the year I got engaged to get married. And I was fortunate enough that I got a newsletter from Western about job openings at the end of that year at Crete, a job open in Quincy.
Sure.
And I applied, and there happened to be an English position, which my fiance, that she was going to teach, it was open also. And we both applied, and we went down there and interviewed, and I got the position. I was the head sophomore coach at Quincy High School. And Cheryl Hanks, bless his soul, was just terrific to me. I mean, he taught me how to build a program. There's no doubt about it. He was the guy that really pointed me in the direction of organization, because they says, you got to be organized, Steve. You got the attitude, you got the will to win, but you got to be organized to get things done. Yep. He's the one, introduced me to summer camps. Sure. We had River City basketball camp. And so from there, I was there 3 years. We finished second in state in 72. It lost to probably one of the greatest teams ever in the state championship game, Thornridge with Quinn Buckner and the boys, Yep. That's another story for another time, but they were terrific. But we did finish second. From there, I went to Oswego for 2 years. I left it. We got to state, got to lead 8 in the second year at Oswego, and I said, I want to go to a bigger school. Well, I jumped probably too soon, but I jumped in LaSalle, Peru. I was there coaching 3 years. I got fired for something to do with my tennis coaching. They took my coaching away, which I could write a chapter on that. But it had to do with tennis. It had to do with basketball. So I stayed there because in 77 my first wife passed away.
Yes.
Okay. So I had 2 little boys, John and Tim. Yep. So I stayed there for a year and just taught. And then I got a job up at Harvard, went up to Harvard for 2 years. And then I remarried to marry my present wife. And we have a daughter. So we have 3 children. And I was there for 2 years, and the job opened up at Rockford Boylan, and we're Catholic, and we love the vision of Catholic education, and we were able to meet with it was Father Mitchell back then, Father John Mitchell and Vince McGuire, and the rest is history.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us about the early days at Boylan. And I don't think people probably understand Boylan, maybe wasn't the perennial powerhouse maybe it is now in multiple sports, or basketball in particular. But talk to us about the experience over the years at Boylan and your success.
Well, one thing I advise for anybody that wants to be a head coach for any program at any level is don't be afraid to talk to the people that you succeeded. And I sat down with Dolph Stanley, legendary coach in his own right, who coached Boylan the 10 years previously from me arriving there. And I talked to him when I first got the job, and I talked to him after I was on the job. I went to his home and talked to him for a while, and just got his feeling, because I respected Dolph and what he could give to the game. One thing I had to do, and thankfully Bill Thumb and I got along very well. Bill Thumb, being the legendary football coach, had great success for the time I was there. And what I learned is try to encompass everyone you can within the school and your program.
Sure.
So any success that we attained, I owe to Father Mitchell, I owe to Sister Anthony, I owe to Nancy Foley, because she
Sure.
was the secretary that was there for me to do my typing, to do a lot of letters, to put our you've seen these books, you got those books, the Hall of Fame, the books we put out at the banquet every year. She put that together for me. She kept that for me. She updated it for me. That's just when we got our T-shirts for camp, the first people I walked down to give the T-shirts to were custodians. Custodians are important. Your assistant coaches like yourself are extremely important. And we had some great assistant coaches. But so the first thing we had to do was when I went in there, I met with the assistant coaches. We had meetings. I told them, this is how we're going to teach things. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to bring things together. I want you to talk in the meetings. I want you to tell me how you feel. Even if you hurt my feelings, that's okay, because I might be wrong. I'm not going to be right all the time. So consequently, I want to improve the communication from everyone in the program, and the coaches, everyone, and the players. And as you're aware of, one of the biggest communications we had was try to get the parents involved as far as letting them know how we felt about their sons. So that's why we always had those preseason meetings in August and early September, and we sat down with them and talked to them about the qualities we wanted to instill in our players, which was God, family, education, and then basketball. So we had those meetings, and we shared how we felt about their son. They could share how they felt about their son, and we had to let the young potential Titan player, expound on what he could do to help our program, because that was one of the questions: what can you do, son, to help us be the best we can be?
Yeah, absolutely. What would you talk about in those meetings? I think I almost remember those meetings. In essence, it was, you'll talk about anything socially, emotionally, academically. Was there anything that you didn't discuss? Playing time. But I remember those meetings because I remember my dad talking about them, certainly with my brothers, but I thought that was very, very engaging, and it was really, really helpful to get everybody on the same page.
Well, Jason, I think that's a very good point, because the reason I had the meetings, it was an individual meeting.
Sure.
It wasn't with, it wasn't with Danny Jones and Steve Langley and Sonny Roberts in the room at the same time, and their parents. No, right. It was, it was Danny Jones and his mom, bless, and we went to their home because she was ill.
Sure.
Okay. Having meetings there. And it's so important that the player can open up and say exactly how he feels. Yeah. And the parents understand. Sometimes when he opens up in front of the coach, they don't really agree with their son's saying. And I'll give you one example. There was a certain player, I don't know if I should name him or not. Everybody knows he's around town.
Text me later.
Huh?
Text me later, but tell the story.
I'll tell the story. Okay, it's a great story. The dad showed up, the mom didn't show up. Dad and moms are both welcome to come in. But the dad showed up with the player, and we're sitting there in the living room. And for some reason, my assistant didn't make it that time. I always had my assistant 99% of the time. My assistants were there, my varsity assistant. But anyways, I said to the young man, name your 5 starters for this year's team, because we got through this. This young man didn't have to worry about his faith. He was above board in every sense of the word. He married his high school sweetheart. He's still married to her now, 25 years later, whatever it is. And also his academics were top shelf. So, his family's great. So we got to basketball, and I says, okay, name your 5 starters. And this young man's going to be a senior, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't name himself. Named 5 other players. His dad almost jumped out of the chair. He said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He says, you start over that person, that person. And I'm sitting there, okay, I'm listening to this discourse. This course, I'm not in this discussion. I'm just sitting there. The dad and the son talked back and forth for about 5 minutes. And the son just said, Dad, those 5 players deserve to start. And the best way I could help this team is I could come off the bench as the 6th man, because I could play more than one position. So I could go in any place, just except maybe point guard, and play these different positions and help our team. And the dad looked at me, what's wrong with him? He says, your son is spot on.
Sure.
You know, and that's one of the situations, you know. I mean, it's really an interesting concept that more people don't do it this way, because right. You know, it's a team sport, and this is one of the only times you can, before the season starts, really deal with the individual, you know, and his attributes and what he needs to do as far as basketball, as far as education, etc. I mean, I've had meetings where it took us a half hour to get past the personal habits of a player, because you know, if you don't straighten up, you're not going to be on the team. And but in this particular case, bang, 5 minutes into our discussion, we're in the basketball, because he had everything taken care of as far as everything else, and he had this taken care of. He knew, and we had a great year with this young man doing what he said he would do.
And you know, the crazy part is, you tell that story, I always think back to my dad about doing or saying anything to protect his boys. But most of the times in those situations, the I guess the more years that I coach, is that I realize that more times than not, if not all the time, the kid gets it, and the parent is typically working to protect them and raise them, versus just kind of trusting somebody else to raise their kid through athletics, particularly basketball, you know. But more times than not, if not every time, the kids understand it, you know.
Yes, they do. They really do. You know, it's
jumping to the next thought, I know you know those little things that you did as a coach and as a program, you know, are some of the things that I know and are very important. And you know, ton of the things that I've implemented over the years are through and because of you. But some of the things, the extra time, whether it's calling all the players before a big game or every game to make sure that they're ready and they've eaten and that they're going to bed at a particular time. I think sometimes some of those things get lost in translation, and certainly do with me in particular, even though I'm just a huge advocate of the little things that you've done. But you know, in addition to calling kids the night before the game, can you talk to just people or coaches and tell them some of those little things that you did through the years that sometimes get lost in translation? Every coach knows that it's right, but not every coach does it.
Yeah, what you're alluding to is like the night before a game. To make a difference, it was the beginning of the season, middle of the season, end of the season. It wasn't just for special games; it was every game. That I would call every varsity player, not just the starters. Every varsity player at a certain time to make sure they're home, because we wanted them home at a certain time the night before a game. So back then they couldn't hide behind cell phones when we first started. You know, we first started. You know,
it was rotor dials.
Almost. So we would call. You know, we'd call and talk, and sometimes we have a little bit more than just a checkup. We'd find out, you know, are you ready for that geometry test tomorrow? Or, you know, are you okay with your girlfriend? You know, things go, because there's been a lot of girlfriends, you know, over the years with our players. So, and they're part of it too. So, and I said, what do you think or we get down to the basketball, what do you think of your assignment for tomorrow night, etc. So I thought that was important to do that. And I think there's things outside the program that we did that were equally as important. And as I think, Jason, you're certainly cognizant of our, for years, we took our team to Special Olympics every May. I think it's the first Saturday in May or something like that. And our players would participate in helping at Special Olympics. And the other thing was probably at Christmas time, we do Christmas carols, sing Christmas carols at all three of the hospitals.
Sure.
And we, give little gifts away to the people that for the pediatric ward. That's where we go to sing these carols. Because I think it's important for our players. I think it's important for everyone. I'm going to qualify that.
Sure.
I think it's important for everyone to realize how much they do have, how much gifts they do have from God and what they have, and then give back to some of the people that are not as fortunate as they are, and for our players at that time to be aware of what's out there and what they can do to help people that don't have as well as they do.
Sure. I think that stuff, I remember that stuff specifically, and I think it's incredible. Changing pace just a little bit. If there's two words that describe Coach Goers in regards to a basketball coach, two words that kind of pop in my top 5 are certainly commitment, which obviously you've been explaining a little bit in regards to the type of effort that you put in on top of basketball. But I think you're the best development coach that I think I've ever been around. And I think there's some kids that I could see coming through the old Boylan system that probably had no business being on a basketball floor as a freshman. And all of a sudden, by the time that they're a senior, they're 6'6", they're 6'7", they're dunking all over the place. And all of a sudden they're either a Division I player, a Division II player, or a college basketball player. What did you do differently in regards to development and commitment?
Well, we used to take our staff and regularly, at least once a year, we'd go to Division I practices because we couldn't open up to November. They're starting October 15th.
Sure.
Sometime between October 15th and November, we go to a practice and we pick up things and we learn. We keep on learning. And one of the things I really learned is to do individual work. Mm-hmm. So we always had big man, small man.
Yep.
We always specialize in big man, small man. And then we try to put them together. And we piecemeal. We things like how to throw the lob pass, where you throw the lob pass, how to catch the lob pass, how to hold the man off. You don't go for the ball till it's above your head. These little tiny things just to make people better. The idea of getting into the weight room, we supported the football program, bigger, stronger, faster. We wanted our kids to get in that weight room and work hard and get stronger, and several of them did get much stronger, and they did mature and grow during their time in Boylan. I mean, Chris Lashak, who's not on the top 10 of any of our stats for Boylan history, was cut as a freshman. Okay. And I got a call that two of the players after the 2 days, the next day, they had freshman practice, and two of the players they kept quit because Kyle Watson was there, and his freshman, he was an assistant freshman coach, and they were running the guys, and they weren't working hard, and they just couldn't stand working hard.
Sure.
He was freshman. So they quit. So what are you going to do? We're down 2 players. So we just keep going. I says, who'd you cut? And he told me the 2 players. One was Chris Lashak. Call them up, see if they want to be on the team.
Yeah.
Well, he did, didn't he? And
yeah.
Chris came back and just kept on going and never started a game until he was a senior.
Yeah.
And he ended up starting. He ended up starting at the beginning of the year. He started after about 5 or 6 games. He started, and we got to the Sweet 16 with Chris Lashak as a post player for us. And Tony Carney was a backup to Demir Krapalia. Right. And Tony Carney, didn't start a single game his junior year, was all conference first team his senior year, and walked out at Notre Dame. And Tony's an engineer. He's down in Atlanta. Last I heard, he was coaching, he was volunteer coaching or something like stuff. Yeah. And the deal is that it also was the carryover factor, because as when we had open gyms in the summertime, our guys would come back from college and work hard on these guys, you beat up on them. And that would sort of point the direction. It wasn't just Steve Goers. It was also our family, the Titan family helping each other out, becoming better players.
Sure. And as I say that some of these kids probably self-admittedly had no business being on basketball courts. I say that, and a lot of those guys are certainly my friends, certainly as I've gotten older. But I think it's a fair statement to turn around and say that you've picked a lot of diamonds out of the rough. You've developed kids into basketball players who probably didn't even think they were basketball players because they wanted to be part of your program. I think that's pretty awesome and admirable. And I just need to tell you because we're here and it feels good saying it. So,
well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I got one for you, and certainly I'd love to go into, a lot of different things, but you've had a ton of success. You're still correct, the second winningest coach in Illinois basketball history behind Coach Pingatore at St. Joe's, who passed away just recently.
That's,
And you've had a ton of success at Boylan. What still keeps you up at night thinking about back in the day?
it changes from time to time.
I knew it.
There's different games that come up, the 92 situation where is probably the biggest situation where our kids gutted it out after we had the suspension. We had to suspend our leading scorer for something he shouldn't have done.
Yep.
And at the end of the regionals, we went to regional. There was a party. Went to the party, got suspended, and we went on, and we had to go on the road to Rock Island, and we beat LaSalle Peru, and we beat Geneseo in the sectionals. LaSalle Peru is like deja vu for me because I coached there.
Yeah.
And actually, it was Geneseo, and we found out we couldn't use the player on Monday. We had to play Geneseo, I believe, on a Tuesday, and it was a tough game, but we ended up beating them. Then we had to play LaSalle Peru, and we ended up beating them. It's another long story, but we could make a long story shorter. Is when we got downstate, we came back here, won the Super, got downstate, won the Elite Eight game. Now we're playing the semifinal game we had, and we're down 1 with 8 seconds to go, or 7 or 8 seconds to go. We take a timeout. We have Johnny Hernandez, a terrific guard, started at Eastern for 3.5 years, I believe, and we wanted to come off the screen, try to get as far as you can. You get a basket. Well, he stopped about 8 feet away. Ball went off the backboard, went off the rim, and Tim Hopson, middle lane, caught it and put it back up. Buzzer, it went in and out.
Sure.
That's what I mean. We wanted it because then we're going to play Proviso East, okay? And then Proviso East won the state championship. They beat Richwoods that night, and we wanted that game so bad because, as a staff and as a Boylan family, because we would have went from winning a regional and losing your leading scorer and get to the state championship would have been. It was phenomenal what we did anyways, but it would have been unbelievable if we did that. And it was a credit to all the players in the team that stuck together through that adversity and went on, and we were very successful. And that was a very tough one. That was a tough one.
Sure. And I knew you'd have a few as the competitor you are. I'm sure there's a ton of them up there in your head in regards to those ones that keep you up at night. But what's your most memorable moment at Boylan? There's a lot of them, I know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, shaking hands and hugging my 3 kids when they crossed the stage after they graduated from Boylan.
Yeah.
That was memorable to me. Okay.
Awesome.
They all went through the system, and 2 boys played for me, and Elizabeth cheered and swam at Boylan, and that was memorable. The regular season would probably have to be that King game because it was just it was just the whole situation being the third big game that night. It wasn't just Boylan King that night. It was, I think, Marengo and Lutheran, and there was East St. Louis and St. Joe's.
Yeah.
And then it was us. And, they're ranked, first in the state and second in the country or some crazy thing.
Sure.
When we played them. And that was super big. And I think the game that we had gotten to Elite Eight about several times, and then we won the Elite Eight game and got that gorilla off our back. I think that's what I was quoted in the video, because the guy in the interview says, "Well, you finally got that monkey off your back," coach. And I says, "That was no monkey, that was a gorilla." We finally got past and we got to the semifinal games. But that was big. I think that was against Bradley. But there were so many terrific moments, terrific moments. Seeing players develop super leadership abilities.
Sure.
And I hate to say just one, because there's so many people that end up being leaders and they're leaders in their own lives.
Sure.
They're people that have graduated and done so many great things, from federal prosecutors, to coaches, to teachers, to doctors, to lawyers. There's so many people out there that have done so well that I'm so proud of that.
Sure. Absolutely. There's sometimes you work a ton of years and do a lot of different things. I just wanted to let you know, and hopefully at some point, there'll be an opportunity where that basketball court is named after you. And I don't know when that day will be, but I still refer to it as the Steve Goers court. So hopefully that happens sooner than later. And every time I get the opportunity to bring it up, I will. I know a couple of years back, certainly just right even before COVID, there was some push toward that. And hopefully that happens someday for you, Coach, because you certainly deserve it.
Well, I appreciate it, Jason. Coming from you, it's very important to me, because the fact, like you said at the beginning of the interview, you were a person that was cut in our program. But you're a person that remained totally loyal to our program, and I love you for that. And your family's been terrific for our program. Your mom and dad, God bless them, and to talk about something like that is humbling to me.
Yeah, I appreciate it immensely. I guess I just got one favor, because I would have loved to continually talk about different things in regards to specific games, specific programs, or specific teams. I don't think people know about you is that, a year ago before COVID hit, I went over to your house and I stole probably, 300 pictures that I'm looking at here on the ground. And almost 99% of the kids throughout the years, and I thought it was pretty awesome. But I am going to do something special with it, and it hasn't just been sitting in my basement. So I look forward to getting that back to you. My one ask would be, at some point, we got to get back on and talk some basketball.
Yes, definitely. If you want to spend some time talking X and O's, that would be super. I mean, I witnessed a game online the other night that I'm going to ask you a question, Jason. You're going against a zone half-court trap. How do you attack
it? I want to score. What game was that you were watching? Well, I mean, you could attack.
You're going against a half-court zone trap.
Yes.
And you have
keep it out of the corner.
You're in the fourth quarter, and there's 4 or 5 minutes to go, or 3 or 4 minutes to go, and you have a 4-point lead.
Well, I guess I'd attack it in the backcourt, to be quite honest with you.
It's a half-court trap. It's not full court.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that I would attack it in the backcourt prior to advancing the ball forward. I mean, before they had the opportunity to trap you, I'd probably attack half court a little bit, reverse it, and then attack from the weak side. And then it obviously hit the middle. But I mean, that's just kind of
stop. Just stop right there. I watched this game, and I can say I watched the team blow that lead and lose by 4. They were losing by 6, but they came back. They went from 4 up to 6 down.
Oh, wow.
Never put a man in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
Never put a man. That's what I'm saying. I just asked you, and you said once you cross half court, you got trapped. You're gonna get the ball in the middle.
Right.
Never put a man in the middle.
Wow.
This guy's coaching This guy was coaching a team that started 8-0, and now I think they're 11-4 or something like that. But
Sure.
I mean, what you're talking about as far as talking about basic fundamentals, that's right there for grade school coaching. And that was another thing we did that we didn't even get to, Jason, tonight, was our elementary school coaching clinics
Yeah, absolutely.
that we had every fall to bring the elementary school coaches in who were volunteers or fathers,
Sure.
and try to help them, organize their programs. So
Yeah, and I know the name of your half court trap, by the way. So I still use baseball. Okay. So we're gonna plug somebody in the middle. I know you're going with it. I guess I just had to say one word instead of giving you some long answer. So
you passed the test.
I got it. I gave you some long-winded, non-intelligent answer.
Yeah, I would have to call. I'll call Brett up and say Jason knows what he's doing.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, that would have solved a lot of problems if I'd have just minimized it. So
That's all right. That's fine. I caught you on the spot. That's okay.
that's good.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I appreciate your friendship through the years, and you always have my number. And what I'm going to do, and you didn't know this, but I'm going to flood this with all your records, so that if somebody has the opportunity to watch this on YouTube, they can really see that your record certainly has, speaks for itself. And I appreciate everything. So thanks so much, Coach, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for continuing the legacy of strong Boylan basketball and helping out Brett McAllister, who's doing a super job at Boylan.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.